Good morning, and thank you very much for joining us. I am Yori Folari. My guest this morning is Mr. Olusesan Okunade. He's a chartered accountant, chartered tax professional, as well as a public affairs, I guess, economic affairs analyst, but public affairs, generally speaking. But I'm going to take, in fact, all three of them I will use today. I will use the accountancy part, the taxation part, and for what is worth, the public affairs part, because we want to talk about, there's so much talk going on now about the exchange rate. And controversially, the vice president have been quoted as saying that the Naira exchange rate is being kept artificially low. Now, the presidential media team have, put out a statement that the vice president's statement is being mischaracterized as seeking, a devaluation of the Naira, and they're saying that nothing could be further from the truth. In fact, we reached out and we scheduled to speak with Ajuri Ngelale, our friend, his SSA to the President on Public Affairs. Ajuri, are you online now? Good morning, Ajuri. Okay, we're still getting Ajuri ready, but well, first of all, as I said, the spokespeople in the presidency have said that no, they are aware, they've seen media reports, and that nothing could be further from the truth, that there is a context that was being missed. And I'll just wait on Ajuri to come on and speak about all of that. But one of the things that are coming about is that, look, the little economics that I know is that when the goods are scarce, when they're few, then the price is going to be high. I think they will score me, give me 10 over 10 on that one.
Perfect.
As long as I don't go into analysis, that is where knowledge comes into play.
Perfect.
Now,
perfect.
How is it that today the black market rate is 568, 570, and the official rate is 410? That is to say, the CBN official rate. Now, there can only be one source of dollars in Nigeria, and it's going to be CBN. So, where you would ask the most rhetorical question, are the black market operators getting their dollars from that they sell at 568? And so, from this point of view, are even the authorities not collaborating with our woes in this regard?
Yeah, first and foremost, on the statement of the VP, like we await a jury to put clarity to it, most especially on the statement of the foreign exchange being artificially low.
Yes,
interpretation
being kept in artificially low. The context in which that was said. Because there's no denial that it was said.
No, but we need to understand the rationale behind it. Once we have the clarity of what that is, then we can put the discussion in the right perspective. But be it as it may, we've always been talking about, I've seen several top economists come about, speak to us, let's devalue our currency so that we can attract exporter, FDI, so that we can
foreign direct investment.
The direct investment and some of these things. But the question I have always been asking, well, this morning, it will not be fair to come and give all these technical jargons that people may not be able to understand, but we put it in a simple layman language that everybody can have a take home with. It is that there's this forces of demand and supply that plays around when we talk about foreign exchange. There is this idea of monetary policy and fiscal policy that plays around even for such. There's what we call the import and export that plays its own role too in this foreign exchange.
Which is referred to as the import and the exporters window.
They all have their own share when you want to talk about the regularization of the foreign exchange as it is. But there are further fundamental issues that needs to be addressed. If some of the dynamics that we have put in place with this basic economics theory to work, first and foremost, talked about the area of production. You must be able to produce, one, be self-sufficient before you can export. Take, for example, the food we eat. You know, we get so many of this foreign exchange from foreign foods from outside. And you discover that if you have traveled, they have more than enough for them. It is the excess of it that is being shipped to African, let me put it that way, that we benefit from. First and foremost, we have asked the government, can we have an enabling environment for business to succeed?
Okay. That point
so that you bring out the productivity.
Since we're keeping this thing very simple, that point that you just made there, any Nigerian can take a walk into any supermarket up and down the country, and you will see shelves and rows of imported foods, imported canned goods, everything, rice.
Even toothpicks, sir.
Which reminds me of President Buhari's pledge on first coming, complaining about even toothpicks. We are importing toothpicks, giving the impression that he would put a stop to all that kind of nonsense, because you can't tell me that we can't produce toothpicks here.
But since then, sir, how many of such have we been able to produce locally? The first thing that bereaved every business as we speak is insecurity. Over the weekend, I had to journey all the way from Lagos to Owo. And I told a few of my friends I want to travel to Owo, and said, why are you going on a suicide mission? And I said, why? You should be able to fly from Lagos to Akure, and from Akure connect wherever you're going. But I said, no, let's have a field, because we give report of things that happen around. You can imagine the dilapidated situation of our roads, all the way from Lagos to Ondo State. Ilesha Ife Road, sincerely speaking, we lost 2 tires with our carefulness of driving. And you imagine that some of the food produce that we have come via this road. You heard about Nupeng threatening last week to go on strike, not for any other thing, but because of road infrastructure. If that has come to bear, do you know the impact an average citizen will be going through today?
So all these things work together. In fact, going back to trying to manage our monetary policy, the CBN is crucial in all of this. But yeah, I have heard experts say that the challenge of CBN is that it is trying to indeed manage our monetary policy, but it doesn't work like that, because there are other institutions, other adjuncts that need to be working in a complementary manner to what the CBN is attempting. Only then can it work. Now, I don't quite understand that, because why would they all not be working, in a complementary fashion to those who are trying to manage it? And these are the areas that perhaps the viewers need to understand.
One of the institutions that is expected to work closely with CBN is our commercial banks.
Okay.
And their role in this foreign exchange for an average businessman, I'm talking from my own perspective, has not been a very good one.
Well, the banks are not very cooperative.
They've not been.
Because of the profit motive?
Well,
the money-making motive?
They will tell you they are not making the profit, that it is the CBN that have a fixed or limited foreign exchange to share.
Okay.
And in that context, you cannot get it. But the same set of people will advise, if you are in need of the foreign exchange, there is an aboki, there is a malam who can provide such.
Bureau de change.
Which we said. So when you
they would prefer to sell to Bureau de change?
Well,
operators?
I won't say they sell, but we've asked the question severally, how do the Bureau de change get their dollars? That CBN will tell you that they don't have so much to give to the legit business owners. An average businessman,
and it's always available with Bureau de change operators.
Irrespective of the amount you want, you always get it with them. And we've asked the question, where are they getting this from? You know very well that the motive of an average businessman is to maximize his profit. He has his cash flow to play around with, and he doesn't want those things to be impeded. So he looks at the cost benefit of saying, if I have to wait 3 weeks, 1 month with the CBN to do this, what is my funds? If I decide to now go to the Bureau de change, get what I need to do, transact business. Do you know at times several people carry out 2 transactions without the same window when you are waiting for approval, when the commercial banks are telling you that they are waiting for certain approval from the CBN?
And now, where is all of where are the dollars that we are spending coming from? Because it reminds me now of our account, our foreign exchange reserve. I don't know. The last I checked, it's somewhere hovering around 39, 40 billion dollars. And this is the figure that President Jonathan reportedly left for this administration to inherit. And as you know, value has changed since then.
It has changed drastically.
Even if you are looking at the figure that, around 40 billion, Jonathan left 39, 40 billion. Today, they say it is 39, 40 billion. But the value is a totally different story.
The fact remains that a friend of mine retired and was given his parting funds rolling into several millions in Naira. But because most of his years he has worked in line with the foreign companies, the first thing he did was the same value that was given to another friend 2 years ago was given to him this year. And he looked at it. That cannot even purchase him an apartment.
It became chicken change.
So the value has actually dropped drastically. And that's why we say there are certain things that need to work together before we can talk about improving the value of our currency.
And that doesn't...
First thing is about production.
Okay, because
local content.
And in any case, it's not going to happen soon. Since you've just said it's about production. Production will go into, if you want, and manufacturing and all of that. But agriculture, that is where we have our greatest strength. And agriculture is not an overnight affair.
I'm sure you know it's not news any longer that the bakers are already contemplating of shutting down.
Because of flour.
The two key things.
Some of them have shut down.
Some have shut down. Some are even, and you can imagine the cost of bread as we speak. So, what are the two key things that these bakers need? Bread is an average food for everybody. I'm sure you know. Every household a day you can do. If as a matter of fact, when some of us were growing up, if you want to take 101 that you eat and drink water, they will ask you to go and get bread and beans. So as soon as you consume that, you are comfortable that you eat all day. That is a food that is not available to common man again. The two key ingredients that we use in production of this is flour and sugar. Do we have the farmers still go to the farm to produce sugar cane? The fact remains that the answer is no, because of the insecurity that we have seen around the farm produce. The flour is the same thing that we are supposed to be. And like we said, I said at the beginning, the cost of flour, people are now importing some of these produce that they need in the production of some of those things.
Even though we made attempts, we've substituted some of the flour with cassava flour. I remember President Jonathan back in time.
That we should eat cassava bread.
Well, yes.
How many people are planting cassava, sir? Even when we claim that...
But they said there's potential there, industrial starch and all of that.
There is potential in something you can tap into. They must be available. They must be available first. And that's when you can tap into it and say, okay, I'll produce this, I can take this out of it, I can make bread out of it, I can make those things out of it. But if those things are not in place, if they are not readily available, you heard about some farm men being kidnapped, being killed, even in the Southwest. So everybody is scared. It's not that we have the land, our land is blessed, we can do those things. But our very
source is compromised.
The point is, I don't want to risk it to go to the farm.
Okay,
or because I want to produce something for them.
I hear that we can speak now with Mr. Ajuri Ngelale, SSA to the President on Public Affairs. Good morning, Ajuri. Thank God we could get you. Now, quickly, because it's not your fault, but we spent more time than we wanted to before getting to you. Let's just go to the VP statement, which is not in contention, that the Naira exchange rate was being kept artificially low. Now, I've heard from you and colleagues in the presidency that that statement is being mischaracterized to mean that the vice president was advocating a devaluation of the dollar. Could you explain the proper context of that statement, please?
Osinbajo has really been at the forefront of actually stating that Nigeria, the Nigerian naira cannot be devalued. If you recall, formerly, when the economic management team was in effect throughout the first term of this administration and beyond, as chairman, he actively said that no, when the IMF and other multilaterals were coming with certain conditions around Naira devaluation, he was at the forefront of saying that that is not the way to go, and that is totally unnecessary, and that the strength of the Naira must be as strong as possible with all instruments available. So that's a starting point. I think, secondly, when you look at the reality in the country, what do we have? We have a scarcity in the supply of dollars. That's not a secret to anybody. Even from the top to the bottom of society, you know that if you've tried to access dollars on the black market, you're looking at 570 plus. And then, of course, the official rate is standing at about 410, meaning that you have this huge gap of about 160 Naira per dollar. So this is a problem. The vice president is simply stating that we cannot have a situation where people where we are inadvertently stimulating speculative activities as opposed to stimulating productive activities. And so what we've said is that if the vice president was clear that if we can just ensure that our Naira, the exchange rate between the dollar and the Naira reflects market value, what you're going to have is you're going to have an influx of dollars, and a lot of them. And the reason why is because right now, if you're doing business and you want to bring in dollars as an investor and an importer, or whatever the case may be, or an exporter, you're going to have a situation now where when it's pegged at 410, you know that if you bring in dollars, right, and you're going to do business, and you want to now get your dollars back when you want to go output, right, you're going to now have a situation where being pegged at 410, you're going to have to be running through all sorts of hoops, and at the end of all of that, you may not even get the 410. Why? Because we're simply managing demand instead of providing the kind of market framework that would enable the sustainable influx of adequate amounts of dollars. This means for us that if you look at how we now tackle that, it's one thing to clarify that His Excellency the Vice President is not for Naira devaluation and that we're only trying to get a steady inflow of dollars so that we can strengthen the Naira relative to the dollar. It's another thing, however, to provide the solution. His Excellency the Vice President, with the full backing of President Muhammadu Buhari in the implementation of the 2.3 trillion Naira economic sustainability plan, the whole idea behind the plan and the execution of it was not just to take us out of recession into growth, which it achieved much faster than everybody expected, but it was also about how do we strengthen the Naira by making very primary the use of the Naira in all of the transactions that we're engaged in. So, for example, we reduce pressure on foreign exchange by ensuring that all of our programs, whether it is the mass housing program under the Economic Sustainability Plan, whether it is the rural electrification program with the mass solar project, where we're providing solar power to 5 million homes across the country, these are locally produced and locally made materials that are being deployed so that not only will we create local jobs, but that we can conduct these transactions in Naira, reducing the pressure on the dollar for many of these things that hitherto would have been imported. That's on the one hand.
One second, please. 1 second, Ajuri. Thank you.
Yes.
Look, 568, 570 black market rate, the official rate, right, 410. So where are the operators of the Bureau de Change getting their supply from that they now, quote unquote, fleece the public with?
Yeah, thank you very much. So it's important to understand that for a long time, as you know, until about June or July, we had a situation where the Central Bank of Nigeria was supplying foreign exchange, supplying dollars to Bureau de Change operators. That has since stopped. Now, at that time, you had a situation where the Bureau de Change operators could simply come together and unify themselves around a particular price point at which they would sell. So you're collecting it at the official rate, right? And then you're now selling it at what was about 495 or 500 Naira to the dollar, right? And then, of course, that was only what? Stimulating the speculative activities of these.
Okay, so they form a sort of a consortium. They take any figure they want off the top of their head. All of them agree to it. Nobody breaks rank, and they're in business.
Well, but this is why the Central Bank of Nigeria now made the adjustment in June or July to say, look, this is not sustainable. because we can simply, greed in many cases, greed cannot be satiated. A man who's making $10 of profit will be looking at how he can make 50. Then after making 50, he'll be looking at how to make 100. So we cannot stimulate speculation and we cannot satisfy greed. What we can do is we can stimulate productivity so that the efforts in the economy are focused around those productive activities that would strengthen the primacy and value of the Naira and really de-emphasize the need for foreign exchange. But at the same time, providing, we already have the importers-exporters window to deal with the value that is required for our mega exporters and importers in the country. Unfortunately, because we have what the vice president has termed as this artificially low rate of 410, which effectively is a demand management mechanism to ration supply of very scarce dollars. We're saying that instead of that approach, let us now look at how we're going to massively stimulate the inflow of dollars. So instead of demand management and rationing, we will now be at a point where we would have the kind of dollars coming in where you don't have to, engage in the kinds of, facilitate a scarcity that now these speculators can now take advantage of. We want to cut that out.
Okay, one moment, please. Now, all that is well and good, Ajuri, because I remember when the president was coming, his first coming, the president himself was critical of our use of scarce, dollars. At the time, exemplifying it by saying, "Come on, guys, we even import toothpicks," giving the impression that it was going to cut out all these unnecessary spending. Is there not a part of the blame to be leveled at the door of, government policies, a failure in government policies? Because the question is, what has been done since then? The president knew this before he actually swung into work. All of what, first term and, this time now into it. What has been done by way of policy to address the situation? It appears to be precious little.
Uncle Yori, I'm so happy that you asked this question because it's a question many Nigerians are asking. And I think that's why it's important for us as a nation to have a long view of where we came from and where we are and where we're going. What I mean by that is we had a situation, if you recall, in 2015, where we were the largest importer of rice on the continent, paying out over $3 billion a year on rice imports from Vietnam and the Asia Pacific, right? We went from the largest importer of rice in Africa to now the largest producer of rice in Africa. It's not about labels or titles or achievements. The point of emphasizing that, as an example, is that right now we're not paying $3 billion to import rice anymore because we're now producing it up almost to the point of self-sufficiency. So that's just one example out of multiple sectors across value chains, whether it's wheat, sugar, fish, and many of the other items where we have gone much closer to self-sufficiency, replacing imports with substituting imports with local production. Now, all of those measures have done a lot to ensure that we can cut down the demand on foreign exchange. My brother, when we had the recession of 2014, 2015, remember, we were not even paying government salaries, not to speak of funding the capital budget. The reason why we have not only had, in the midst of 2 recessions and a global pandemic, right, we have never had any issues paying salary, we have never stopped funding our budgets, is because of the fact that President Muhammadu Buhari's policies have substituted our massive foreign exchange expenditures on import items with local production. Okay. So we have gone a long way in terms of government policy. Now, with that said, my brother, Uncle Yori, we are not where we want to be yet. It is a journey. It is a process. Okay. What we are saying is that if you look at the economic sustainability plan, aside from the ones I've already mentioned, we have the export expansion facility program under the Nigerian Export Promotion Council.
Because Ajuri, I know. I'm sorry to interrupt you, Ajuri. I know that you fitted us in and you have quite a number of places to be here to be today. But let me just conclude by asking you to speak about what you were just going to touch on. Excuse me, mechanisms like the importers and exporters window. Talk to me about that a bit.
Okay, thank you very much. So for us, once we can have, if we're able, and I want to just emphasize that President Muhammadu Buhari and His Excellency the Vice President are on the same page as it relates to the need for synergy between the monetary and fiscal policies of the country, right? There must be synergy. Everybody is in agreement on that. I think what is critical moving forward is that we have this I&E window to ensure that anybody wanting to bring foreign exchange into the country can reliably access the foreign exchange at the point of output, right? When it's time to send the foreign exchange out for whatever reason, for repatriation or whatever the case may be. Right now, we know what the situation is. You've heard about the airlines, you've heard about the various industrial players who are having trouble there. So what we are saying is that if we can adjust the policy, right, to ensure that the Naira is reflecting market reality against the dollar, you're now going to have a situation where instead of queuing up at banks for dollars you may not even get at 410, what we are saying is that once you have this massive inflow of dollars, you're now going to have a huge uptick in the value of the Naira. And so these are the policy instruments we can put into effect in the immediate term to ensure that we can incentivize the massive inflow of dollars so that they can access it on the way out, so that we can also strengthen the Naira and devalue, de-emphasize the primacy of the dollar, with our policies with import substitution and some of the other policies I've mentioned. So it's a two-pronged strategy that we're taking.
Well, we do have our work cut out for us, Ajuri, as Nigerians and as managers of the economy. All of us, we have our part to play. But at least we sort of got context to the question of the Naira exchange rate being kept artificially low. And it is not that Vice President Osinbajo is actually advocating a devaluation of the Naira. I think that much you clarified. And I want to thank you for making the time for us this morning, Ajuri. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for having me, Uncle Yori. God bless you.
Indeed, our pleasure. Okay, so we'll go on to break now, but we can we'll get to a couple of minutes in. So give me your impressions of the explanation of the presidency spokesman on this whole question.
Yeah, I appreciate the fact that Ajuri said certain things which we have been discussing before he came on board, and the fact that the context at which the Vice President was saying those things was not in line, that we took it out of place. The fact remains that the government has actually realized now that we need to enhance the productivity sector of our economy. It's key and it's fundamental. But the challenge for this to come to reality is security. Security. As a matter of fact, we have said it thanks to that number.
Development.
You know, I don't want to go to the area of infrastructure, because if you have given Ajuri the opportunity to talk about that, he would have spent longer time. Government is really working on infrastructure, and I can give that to them. Talk about the rail system, the red line, the blue line, and all those things.
Let me come back to you, because Reverend Dominic has called in. Maybe we can squeeze in Reverend Dominic before going to break. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Chief Yori.
Thank you. Thank you.
Can I talk to you? Can you hear me?
Please go ahead, sir.
Yori, honestly speaking to you, I didn't understand the English, the presidential social assistant.
Ajuri Ngelale.
I didn't understand anyone. Maybe
what do you mean? Maybe. You are a man of letters, Reverend. So what is the part that you didn't quite agree with?
I don't understand it, because it's a big drama that doesn't meet the reality of the ground. You say, if I say a man is a woman, how do you agree? Yori, let me tell you, go to the market, Yori. Just go to the market. The rice you will see is Pavon rice from Italy, from Thailand. I ate it for in my house. So the one that's still available to us here is a foreign rice. I'm sure in your house. Now let me say this. Your time will come with a policy that will be speaking to ourselves with our language. And I see no. I will tell you about. So to understand the English, when the Mr. Vice President said that the official rate, what is official rate?
Yes.
That 410 naira per dollar is official law. And 570 elsewhere, it is official law. What is that to tell us? So please, in 1980s, Naira was 5 kobo per dollar. How is our economy? How is the economy doing in 410 Naira per dollar? It will get to 1,000. Now, your limit is there's two terrorism here. There's economic terrorism, there's police terrorism. In the southeast, the government, the power is up of. They giving directions to government. In the federal, they want to come without the change. At the whole economy, do you know we are dancing in the music of the brand change? I have listened to the Syrian government. What he was crying also about brand change. Brand change in Nigeria. We're not afraid of government policy in Naira or dollar, but we are afraid of what they're doing outside. Number 3, you ask this man a question, you didn't answer it. Where did they get their own dollar that they used to command the economy of Nigeria, that were done before them with an artificial law, artificial, which means the government in power is not in charge of economic policy here. It is broadly changed.
Well, Reverend, it clearly is a work in progress. This debacle we find ourselves in the midst of, shortage of foreign exchange linked to situations back home. We can't do the production to send abroad, to export, and thereby gain dollars from. So we'll come back and we'll take a break now. We'll come back and we'll continue to look at it, and we'll keep taking your calls. Stay with us, please. Okay, welcome back, and thank you for joining us. If you just arrived, you're in the call-in section, and Mr. Mohammed in where's Mr. Mohammed calling in? He's on the line right now.
Good morning, Uncle Yori.
You're in Delta. Good morning, sir.
Yes, Delta, Wari, sir.
Wari in Delta. Please go ahead now, quickly, please.
Okay, thank you very much, and good morning to your guest.
Indeed.
Good morning.
And, thank you very much.
I will say good morning to your
Okunade.
former guest, Ajuri.
Yeah.
I think your guest over in the studio, I want to really appreciate his analysis. I think the key issue is really hammering on is security. You see, Uncle Yori, when we are actually discussing demand and supply, we don't use price as indicator. We also use what we call affordability. However cheap a commodity is, if you don't have the money, it is costly. And however costly a commodity is, as long as you have the money, it is cheap to you. Where are the black marketers getting the dollar? It's a question we will not finish exhausting. The other thing to ask ourselves also, where are also people getting the Naira that are able to buy it at 570? Where are they also getting the money from?
It's a good question, a good corollary question.
What I want to say is that, let me go back to that security, because I really like the trend the analyst there took. When we talk about security, people fear to go to farm. As people actually fear to go to farm, it also, our productivity has reduced here. It means it has reduced supply. And what supply reduced, certainly price will be high.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mohammed.
With that existing, and also with taking our children abroad. When you fear the security of the country, whether OOU is very good, Kano is very good, for the fact that you are afraid that they will kidnap or your child is not secure, you will be afraid of, you will not think of taking the child to abroad.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for calling in. The conversation is in the context we're having today is in the context of the Naira exchange rate is being kept artificially low, a statement attributed to the Vice President, not denied, but needs to be put in context, and that the Vice President was definitely not advocating a devaluation of the Naira. In studio with Olusesan Okunade, chartered accountant and tax professional. The initiative one time between Lagos State government and Kebbi, this whole synergy thing, lake rice, it really held so much promise. But I don't know, have you kept tabs on it? Is it still in good shape, in good health? That initiative?
When my friend Ajuri was talking, I wish I could interject when he said we have self-sufficient in the production of rice. Well, I don't know. Everybody around in the studio knows me that I'm a fan of lake rice, because when it was produced years back, I make sure that's what I eat in my house. But as I speak, the availability of lake rice in Lagos is no longer there. I don't know what happened between the connectivity between Lagos and Kebbi. And those are part of the synergy you were saying. Kebbi has the grant and the wherewithal to produce those things. Lagos are a consumer of the rice. So let me invest in you and go ahead and do this. But I want to believe, which I'll go back to it again, insecurity must have been the destabilizing factor for the farmers to go to the farm to produce the rice. So if those things are there for the farmer to go to the farm to produce, nothing will stop them. Nothing will stop. The area we must first address, for me, that what everywhere I go to, food is not a problem. But as we speak in this part of the world, in Nigeria, food is a problem. There is no common food that any one of us can afford. Make it rice, make it beans, make it bread, Are you aware that we now import gari into this country, sir?
That was scary. We were talking about that off air, and you say, God forbid, maybe Chinese gari is coming in.
Because we opened the window.
Okay, Mr. Opara in VI. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Please go ahead.
And good morning to the guests here.
Yeah.
Good morning.
Uncle Yori, even if we start from today to when this administration will go, there is nothing coming out of it. If they get into the government, they promise us a lot and a lot. Even the Naira will be up than the dollar. But today it's opposite. What is the cost of all this? We are not exporting. In everything we import. We import everything. Now they promise us the cause of this problem is security. We don't import any foodstuff again out of Nigeria because no farmer is farming again. We have cocoa system before that they used to build the oil and other. Where is the cocoa something today? Where is the rice? Where is the yam? Where is the cassava? Where is everything? That is it. So this administration has failed already. So from today to next term, they will be telling us story. English. Because it's not affecting them. It's affecting the common man in Nigeria.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Opara. This is exactly you're echoing Reverend Dominic, but economics, well, yeah, you can speak, maybe you can teach economics in Hausa, in Ijebu, in Yoruba as well. But the common denominator is to make these statements, which are universal principles that you were speaking about.
Uncle Yori, I was young, because I'm still part of the Sorosuke generation. But I remember when we were growing up, we have the likes of Dunlop producing tires for
That's right.
Michelin.
They had to
I was not part of the people because I saw a flyer going around of when we had a man paying for this musician just 18 Naira to come and perform in a show. We were still young. But the fact remains that we met some of these companies. I remember Michelin at Oregon. I know of Dunlop tires.
In Ikeja there, or is it
most of these companies, sir, where are they?
They have relocated.
So how do you? Because most of those things we have rubber.
Even Nigerian businessmen are relocating to Ghana.
So we have some of these raw materials available to us, but we are not maximizing them.
I just heard someone. Mazi Okorafo, good morning, sir. We just lost Mazi Okorafo. And prices, of course, the corollary of all of this is that, in fact, people even say that nothing ever comes down once the price begins to go up.
It will go up. The problem...
So, and everybody, when you say, how can you... In fact, now people are even accusing the market... people are accusing the market of everything you say is dollar. Even the amala. Even the amala, your scope is getting smaller. Does the dollar affect amala too?
No, I mean, because if you checked very well, the person selling amala to you gets his income to buy some certain thing. So if what he's buying is on the high side, not even as input into what the amala is producing.
Yes.
After getting the amala, he's going to transport himself home. If the cost of transportation is there, where do you want to accommodate for it?
The elubo, the flour that will become amala. So but I get to the point you're making. And even the inputs in the farm.
I appreciate the fact that Ajuri said something, that the economic think tank of the president, of the government, led by the vice president, is looking at bringing back some of those areas of having the production arm of everything. Practically everything that we have in this country is being imported. Even education. This thing must be given those things. Gone are those days when we have the foreigners come into this country to come and study at UI. Gone are those days when we have some of these people coming to come and have their education in the Obafemi Awolowo University.
That's right.
But where is it today? I can travel and go to ABU and study. Most of my friends study in the north. How many of our parents today can afford to release their children to go to ABU and study?
Okay. A call from Owerri. Did I get the name right? Sidel? Is it Sidel in Owerri?
Yes, Chief Fidel Onyeneke. I'm calling from Owerri.
Good morning, sir. Please go ahead.
Yeah, good morning.
Good morning.
The problem with Nigeria is not that of devaluation of Naira. Rather, we must create a conducive atmosphere for our farmers and farming to thrive in this country. Apart from insecurity, which is ravaging most places and affecting the farmers, we need to provide such a level playing ground. For instance, farm inputs. How many of our young people are ready to go to farms these days? Do we have land for them to cultivate? Even when they are cultivated in rural areas, are there rural roads for the transportation of these goods to the urban areas? What of preservation? What of storage? All these things are problems. We must go back to the drawing board, sensitize our young people. Even colleges and schools of agriculture should be mobilized. Farmers, the new farmers should be given appropriate loans. They should be given appropriate input so that they go and carry out their duties without harassment, without molestations. That is my take.
Thank you very much, Asido, for very well said. I think he said we have to go back to the drawing board. I put it also to Ajuri. That look, government policy failure. It has to. There's no way you run away from it. This is part of going back to the drawing board.
Uncle Yori, we've heard and you keep hearing of CBN dishing out money to farmer. I mentioned to you that I traveled last weekend from Lagos to Owo. Sir, I looked at the vast land. There was a time I came into this country with a friend from Israel, and he said, please, who planted some of these things that you have here? Say, planted. They grew on their own. The trees grew on their own.
This is just virgin forest.
Just throw some seed of maize on the ground. Give it some time. It will grow on its own. He said, wow, we have to survive via irrigation in our country.
That's right.
And when you are putting so much money into farming, and I was thinking that, because it's been a while I traveled via road because of insecurity. But the fact remains that all the way from Ilesha Ife till I got to Ipetu Jesha, both left and right, you have vast land. What stops us of going into mechanized farming? Well, even if it is that area.
The attempt at this was made back in the Saraki era, former when he was governor.
In Kwara State.
I think with some, was it Israeli
Zimbabweans counterparts.
I don't know what came of all of those, that kind of an effort.
That is when there was security that you could guarantee your partners coming from those areas that they are secure.
I am reminded. Mr. Yakub in Dokwemu, good morning, sir.
Good morning, sir.
Thank you for calling in.
And then good morning to your guys.
Sure.
Good morning, sir.
Your guys have said it all. He has said it all. Whether the government like it or not, some of us support the government. We believe that they can do it, and then we don't want them to fail. That is why we continue to say the truth. We don't support them because we need anything from them, but we support them because we need a good governance.
And that's what we need from them now. We say we don't need anything from them. That is what we need from them.
Exactly. Your guys have said it all. Whatever they did in terms of devaluation of our Naira, whether they like it or not, they will continue to devalue from now to next year. If they fail to solve the issue of insecurity, because if you devalue your Naira and then you make sure the farmer go back to the farm, and then a situation whereby the farm is already germinate in terms of a situation where they want to take the crop, and then the F-men run into the farm and destroy everything. What do you expect is going to happen in the market? The market will continue to go up. You mentioned something like when your guys, I forgot his name, the spokesman to Mr. President.
Ajuri Ngelale.
Ajuri Ngelale about infrastructure. Yes, they have done a lot of work, a lot of jobs in terms of infrastructure. But I'm very sure you are a native of Ogun State. Please, this weekend, just travel from Lagos to Abeokuta and then come back and then come and tell us what you see on that very particular road. You cannot dare go there in the second time, because some of us apply that road weekly basis. We know what we are passing through in that road.
Now we have to go. Now we have to go through the expressway instead of the more straightforward one that goes past Otta, which people tell you never attempt.
Yes,
Papa Lanto side.
You will see face the same thing. See, that road is not gone area, especially if there is a little rain. If you dare not carry your motor to that place. So God bless us, and then I think the government can do better than this. Make sure they should make sure they solve the issue of insecurity. That is only answer to this problem. Thank you. Good morning, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Yakubu.
Then, let me just remind you. You know, those days, I remembered before I started saying I want to fly to some part of the country. There was a period that we were doing night journey.
Night travels, huh?
In fact, as at then, I enjoyed it. Do you know the reason? The atmosphere will be cool. When you are driving your car, you are not facing the issue of saying the heat will eat up your tire or anything. You can move. I've had instances to drive from Lagos to Ondo to Ekiti. I will leave Lagos as late as 7 p.m. and by 11 I'm in Akure, I'm in Ekiti.
But not to be advised anymore.
I cannot even do it during the day. During the day, and that's why whatever policy
going on to talking about insecurity,
it is that area.
And that's apart from
Nigeria are very creative. I can choose to go and invest as a businessman. That's why we said let government take their hands off business. Leave the business for the businessmen who understand that.
I was going to go there because as we are in the home stretch of the program now, Ajuri, understandably, he's a spokesperson. I spoke about failure of government policies. Never mind, and Reverend Dominic and one other guy has spoken about all this grammar, all this English that you people are speaking up there. What we're looking at here, because all these things you're talking about, people saying we got to go back to the drawing board. There's so much to be done to right this situation, and it could be discouraging. It could actually be discouraging, but we're not to lose hope, right?
No, I always tell every individual. Some people know me with a slogan that whatever we're faced with now, let's keep hope alive, because there's always light behind the tunnel. We may not have the light. We may not have idea that there is light behind the tunnel. Take, for example,
sorry, sir, for interrupting you. The frustrating part is that many Nigerians watching us remember when they were complaining that the dollar was 18 naira to the dollar, and then it got to 20, and they say, oh, this country has spoiled. 20 naira to the dollar. And did we just mention the figure of 410 as the official rate? And the black market rate being 570.
570.
And I'm even scared to mention the exchange rate between the pound sterling and the naira.
No, we don't need to go to that area.
Yes.
Those are the time that I mentioned earlier, that we even had the foreigners come to OAU. Do you know we had some of these foreigners that came in then and refused to go back to their base? Because that was the period people don't need to put so much pressure on dollar. You want to aspire to go to UI, you want to aspire to go to OAU, you want to aspire to go to ABU, you have foreigners lecturing us then. But what do we have now? Everybody wants to abandon. If you see any student in SS class now, ask him, what do you want to do? Sir, I don't want to do JAM. What exactly do you want to do? I'm preparing my A-levels. A-levels for what? To check out of the country. So if he checks out of the...
And failing that, people are beginning to put more, these young students and their parents are beginning to put more attention on private universities.
So even some don't even want the private. They just want to check that. And what is the contributing factor to this? When you go out, what do you pay? Which currency do you use in paying your school fees?
The whole point.
Is it not the same dollar?
Now, just spare a thought for the parents, the Nigerian parents who have wards and children abroad.
I'm sure majority will be asking their wards, can you put side by side with your education some work to do to generate dollars for yourself?
In order to
because they didn't start this way.
Because they couldn't.
Some of them, while their kids were in 100 level, dollar was at like 180 to $1. Now it's about 500.
And
how do you expect them to
who was
cope?
that gentleman who asked, as you are asking where where the Bureau are getting their supply from, we need to also ask, even those that are able to buy it at 570 naira, where are they getting their naira from?
Well, the fact remains that desperate situation requires desperate act. So even if it is your last kobo, because you know an average Nigerian,
yes,
I'm doing it for my child.
Yes.
Even after paying those fees, and you don't even have transport fare from your home to the office, you don't mind giving all,
and then
because you have started it. You have started it. So let's bring back those old things, like Ajuri said. Let's have educational sector functioning well, where I can tell myself, my child, you don't need to apply for anything. What is Canada? We teach them those things. Go to UI, go to LASSO, go to ABU, go to UNIMED. My partner studied in the North, is a Westerner. Do we still have those things being practiced now? Until we bring those things in the right perspective, educational sector, I don't want to go to the area where we have to depend solely on Dangote for refining our fuel. It's a good, to me,
people are putting a lot of hope.
In fact, to me, is a good thing, because we have asked the government, your business as government is to make the environment conducive to we, the business owner. Leave the management of the business to us. We understand the language of the business. So you will see if a private sector,
totally different subject, that government has no business in business.
They don't have it. Create the environment.
That's another conversation.
If you go to section 14 of subsection 2, their responsibility is to provide security and welfare of the citizen. Your business is not to go into the business. Well, leave it in the hand of the people that understand the dynamics. I won't want to invest as a stakeholder in a business and seeing people coming into my office at 10 o'clock when they are supposed to resume by 8.
Well, Olusesan Okunade, I want to thank you very much for coming along and giving us your very insightful.
Okay, Yori, my pleasure all the time to be with you.
It's our
Just
pleasure.
That you didn't bring my own Ankara.
Thank you very much. Benny, you know how it is. But thank you very much for coming. And our appreciation also to Ajuri Ngelale, presidency spokesperson. That's our program today. We still have a lot of work ahead of us. We tried to look at the statement that the Naira exchange rate was being kept artificially low, that was made by the Vice President, and, put in context the fact that he was in no way, shape, or form advocating for a devaluation of the Naira. Well, that's our program today. Please join us tomorrow for a fresh edition. I'm Yori Folarin. Bye-bye for now.